Get comfortable. Pull the blanket up, settle your head into the pillow, maybe put on a fan for that soft hum, because tonight's journey is a strange kind of luxury tour. You're going to spend 24 hours living an ordinary day in the Middle Ages, around the year 1300, as an ordinary English peasant. And I promise you this, by the end of the night, that bed you're lying in right now is going to feel like the greatest invention in human history. Ready? Take a breath, close your eyes, and it's 4 a.m. A bell is ringing. Not your phone, a real bell, iron and coal from the church tower across the village, and it is ringing for you. Open your eyes. You see, almost nothing. You're in a single room, maybe 5 by 4 meters, and it is profoundly, totally dark. No streetlight through the curtains, no glowing chargers, no light pollution on the clouds. Darkness in the Middle Ages is absolute, in a way almost no living person has experienced. You're lying on a sack stuffed with straw, on a dirt floor packed hard as concrete, under a woolen blanket that smells of smoke, sheep, and last winter. Your pillow is a log. A smooth log, if you're lucky. You are not alone in this room. Your entire family sleeps within arm's reach. Parents, siblings, possibly a grandmother. Because this one room is the whole house.
And that snuffling sound in the corner? That is a pig. An actual pig sharing your bedroom, along with a few chickens roosting in the rafters. This isn't poverty by your village's standards. This is normal. Animals indoors mean warmth, and warmth means survival. A pig in the bedroom is, in 1300 terms, central heating that also becomes bacon. The fire in the middle of the room, no chimney, just a pole in the thatch above, has burned down to embers, and someone needs to wake it up before the cold gets serious. That someone is you. And here's your first genuine medieval problem 4 minutes into your medieval day. There are no matches. Matches won't exist for another 500 years. If those embers have died completely in the night, you'll be striking flint against steel over dry moss in the dark with numb fingers. Still, that takes real practice. Or walking to a neighbor's house to beg a shovel full of live coals, which was so common, it was practically a social institution. Keeping fire alive overnight was so important that the church bell that ends the day is literally named after it. But we'll get to that tonight. For now, the embers glow, thank God. You feed them a handful of straw, then twigs. Light crawls up the walls of your entire world. 1 room, 1 table, 2 benches, a chest, some tools, a family, a pig. Outside, the sky is still black and the village is already waking. Somewhere, a rooster confirms it. Your day has begun, and you have roughly 18 hours of it to survive. Before you step out, get dressed, which takes 10 seconds because you sleep in most of it. Your wardrobe, complete inventory. A long linen shirt that is also your underwear and your pajamas, a wool tunic over it, dyed the muted green-brown of local plants, wool hose tied to a belt, leather turn shoes made in the village, resold forever, a hood that doubles as a hat, scarf, and pocket. That's it. That's the wardrobe. 1 everyday set, 1 better set for church if the year's been kind. Both made, mended, and remade by the women of your house until the fabric literally becomes patches for the next garment. Fashion anxiety does not exist. Everyone you know dresses within the same 5 colors, and sumptuary attitudes mean dressing above your station would read as either hilarious or suspicious. There are no mirrors. You will go years between clear looks at your own face, catching it only in still water and polished metal. And honestly, the psychological revolution hiding in that sentence deserves its own documentary. And one more morning companion to acknowledge, since we're being honest about the texture of this life, lice and fleas are universal in every bed, from yours to the king's, and the evening delousing, family members picking through each other's hair by firelight like affectionate primates, is so normal it's practically a social ritual. Tenderness and pest control in one gesture. You'll itch for your first medieval week, then, like the smell, it becomes weather. The sky is turning gray and your stomach is making demands. Let's talk about medieval breakfast, and let's start by deleting everything in your head. No coffee,
No tea. Coffee won't reach England for 3.5 centuries. Tea even longer. No sugar. Sugar is an exotic ultra-luxury sold by apothecaries, gram by gram as medicine. No orange juice, no bananas, no chocolate. Potatoes, tomatoes, corn. Those are hiding on a continent nobody in your village knows exists. What you have is bread. Dark, dense, heavy bread. A mix of wheat, rye, barley, whatever the field gave. And if the harvest was bad, stretched with ground beans or worse.
White bread exists, but it's for lords and priests. Your loaf is brown, hard-crusted, and honestly, by modern artisan bakery standards, you're eating $12 heritage sourdough every single day of your life. With it, pottage. Remember that word, because pottage is the true hero of the medieval diet, a perpetual vegetable stew that lives over the fire, eaten morning, noon, and night. Onions, leeks, cabbage, beans, peas, herbs from the garden strip behind the house, thickened with oats. Yesterday's pottage is the base of today's pottage. In busy weeks, that pot might genuinely never be empty or fully fresh. A stew with a family tree.
And to drink? Here's where I have to do some myth surgery, because you've probably heard that medieval people drank beer instead of water because all the water was deadly. That's half wrong. Medieval people knew good water from bad. They prized clear spring water, drank it constantly, and located villages around it. The real reasons you'll drink weak ale all day are better ones. It's calories. Liquid bread for a body burning 4,000 a day in the fields. It keeps well, and it tastes like something. This small ale is so weak that children drink it at breakfast. Nobody's drunk, everybody's mildly carbonated and fed. Now, one more thing before you head out, and it's the thing every time traveler forgets. The smell of this breakfast scene. Wood smoke in everything. Your clothes, your hair, the bread. Animal warmth from the pig corner. The sharp note of the manure pile doing its valuable work by the door. Valuable because manure is fertilizer, and fertilizer is next year's bread. Your nose will stop noticing in about a day. Your modern brain might take longer. You eat standing up. Wooden spoon from the family pot, a heel of yesterday's loaf, a mug of small ale, and honestly, on a cold morning, hot pottage with bread is genuinely good. This is the well-kept secret of the medieval day. The misery is real, but so is the comfort. They are just differently distributed than yours. Wipe the spoon, tuck it in your belt. Yes, people carry their own spoons. A spoon is personal property worth having. And step outside. The eastern sky has gone pink. The fields are waiting. And in the Middle Ages, the fields do not wait politely. A note on the calendar of your stomach, because the year does not feed you evenly. The lean season, and this surprises everyone, is not the dead of winter, when the granary and the salted pig are at their fullest.
It's high summer, the weeks before the new harvest, when last year's grain runs thin and this year's still stands green in the field. The hungry gap, they'd learn to call it. Old bread stretched with beans, pottage getting thinner, everyone squinting at the wheat, willing it to turn gold faster. Feast follows physics. The fat months are autumn, right after harvest and the great pig slaughter, and that abundance is banked into the larder with every preservation trick 1,000 years of practice invented. Salting, smoking, drying, honey. Honey, by the way, is your century's entire dessert industry. The only sweetener a peasant will ever taste. Guarded in hives at the garden's end, and the reason a good beekeeping neighbor is worth cultivating.
For sourness, cooks press unripe grapes and crab apples into verjuice, medieval lemon juice. For everything else, there is the eternal trinity of onion, garlic, and whatever the herb strip grew. You will crave nothing you have never tasted. That's the strange mercy of it. No peasant lies awake missing chocolate. The cravings that hurt are simpler. White bread, a little more meat, and in the hungry gap, simply more. Keep that in your pocket for tonight's verdict, because a diet can be poor in choices and still rich in almost everything else.
Walk out of the village and look at the land, because the land explains your entire existence. No fences, no square family farms. Instead, enormous open fields divided into hundreds of long, narrow strips, like a giant striped blanket thrown over the hills. Your family holds maybe 15, 20 strips scattered across those fields. A strip here, a strip there, so that everyone gets a share of both the good soil and the bad. It's a system with a built-in sense of fairness and a catch. The catch is standing at the top of the hill.
the manor house. You don't own your strips. You hold them from the lord of the manor, and the rent is not primarily money, it's you. 2 or 3 days a week, depending on season and custom, your labor belongs to the lord, plowing his land, harvesting his grain, carting his firewood before or alongside your own. On top of that come the extras that medieval peasants listed with special bitterness. You must grind your grain at the lord's mill for a cut, bake in the lord's oven for a fee. When your father dies, the lord takes the best animal from the household as death duty, the Harriet. Literally your family's finest cow, gone at the worst possible moment. If you're a villain, an unfree peasant, and most of your village is, you cannot legally leave the manor, marry off your daughter, or send your son to school without the lord's permission, which usually means the lord's fee. Freedom exists nearby. Free tenants who pay rent in money and answer to fewer demands. And the line between free and unfree runs through the middle of the village, invisible and absolute. So, no, you would not last a day in the Dark Ages. Not because of the plowing, but because of the moment you understood bone deep that you are a line item in another man's ledger. And yet, here's what the Pitchfork and Misery documentaries skip. The system has rules, and rules cut both ways. The lord's demands are fixed by custom, the custom of the manor, remembered by the village elders, written in the court rolls. And a lord who suddenly demands more faces peasants who drag their feet, quote precedent at him in his own court, and have a dozen quiet ways of making a manor unprofitable. You are exploited, but you are not lawless prey. You live inside a web of mutual, grudging, extremely well-documented obligations. And today, mercifully, is not a lord's workday. Today, the strips you plow are your own. The oxen are yoked, 8 of them, pooled between several families because nobody can afford a full team alone. Cooperation stitched into the economics, and the plow bites into the clay. It will take all morning to do 1 acre. Behind the plow, the youngest kids throw stones at the crows that descend on the fresh furrows like a mob. That's a real job, crow scaring. Somebody you know did it for years. The sun is properly up now. Your back already knows what the afternoon will feel like. And in the distance, from the manor bell, not the church, the manor, a single dull clang reminds everyone whose clock this landscape really runs on. About that plow, since your shoulder is on it, give the machine its due, because it quietly built everything around you. The heavy-wheeled plow, iron coulter to slice, share to cut, moldboard to turn the sod in a rolling wave, is the tractor of your millennium. It cracked open the fat, wet clay soils of Northern Europe that the Romans' light scratch plows never could. And historians genuinely credit it with shifting civilization's center of gravity north. It's also why your fields are long strips in the first place. Turning an 8-ox team is such an operation that you plow the longest furrow possible before attempting it. A furrow's length, the furlong, still sitting inside your other century's mile. The land itself runs on the 3-field waltz, 1 field in winter wheat, 1 in spring barley and beans, 1 resting fallow under the manure of grazing animals. The whole village rotating together in a scheme no individual can opt out of because your strips are in the shared field. Farming here is a team sport with no bench, and everyone plays. The men plow and mow, the women, who work the fields at planting, weeding, and harvest alongside everything else, run the dairy, the poultry, the garden, the brewing, and the textile pipeline from sheep to shirt. The children scale up through the job ladder of childhood, crow scaring at 6, goose herding at 8, following the plow at 10, a scythe at 14. Nobody in a medieval village asks a child what they want to be when they grow up. The village already knows. Whether that's a tragedy or a comfort is one more question for tonight's verdict. Mid-morning, walk back through the village with a stranger's eyes, because this cluster of 30-odd thatched houses is a complete, self-contained civilization of about 300 people, and you're about to meet the whole org chart. Start with the church. Stone, while almost everything else is timber and mud. It's the tallest, strongest, most beautiful thing you have ever seen, will ever see on a weekly basis. It is your calendar, your clock, your art gallery, your concert hall, your insurance policy for eternity. The priest, who might farm his own strips on weekdays and whose Latin may be, let's say, improvisational, christens you, marries you, marries you, and on Sundays shows you paintings of exactly what happens to sinners in colors you'll dream about.
Next, the mill down by the stream. The miller is, by broad medieval consensus, the most resented man in the village, a monopolist by law, since you must grind here. And folk wisdom insists every miller has a golden thumb that presses the scale on his cut. Is your miller actually cheating? Statistically, probably no more than anyone. Culturally, it doesn't matter. For 600 years of jokes and poems, the miller is guilty. Next door, the blacksmith, the village's applied physics department. Plow parts, sickles, hinges, horseshoes, and the ringing anvil that doubles as the village's second heartbeat. The alewife. Brewing is women's business, and a good batch turns her cottage into a temporary pub the moment a green branch goes up over her door, the medieval version of flipping the open sign. The reeve? A peasant like you, elected by the village, yet answerable to the Lord. The poor soul who has to make sure everyone shows up for the Lord's plowing. Think middle management, but the office is 1,000 acres and everyone knows where you sleep. And the beadle, the hayward, the ale tasters? Yes, the village has official ale tasters. And no, that job did not lack applicants. Now, the real infrastructure, everyone knows everyone, completely, generationally. Your grandfather's feud, your aunt's scandal, the exact history of every strip, hedge, and grudge, all of it stored in 300 interlinked human memories. There is no privacy. 0. Your neighbors will testify about your business in the manor court with forensic detail because your business happened in front of them, because everything happens in front of everyone. To your modern soul, this is suffocating, but watch it work. When Alditha's cottage burned last winter, the village rebuilt it in days. No insurance claim, just obligation and muscle. When the plow team is short, when the harvest must beat the rain, when a widow's strips need cutting, the same suffocating web becomes a safety net that modern civilization has spent a century trying to reinvent with apps. 300 people who cannot escape each other, and therefore cannot abandon each other. That's the village. Population, everyone you will ever know. 2 more villagers you should meet before noon because no portrait of this place is complete without them. First, everyone's names. Listen to the roll call at the manor court and you can hear surnames being born in real time. John the Smith is becoming John Smith. Alice, who lives by the green, is Alice at Green. Walter from the mill, Walter Miller, and the man from the next county over is simply Robert Newman, the new man, forever. Your own last name, whatever it is, was very possibly minted in a village like this, from a job, a place, a father, or a joke that stuck for 800 years.
Somewhere in this century, a nickname is quietly becoming your signature. Second, the animals who aren't livestock. The village dogs, herders, guards, and one shaggy freelance philosopher who belongs to everyone and no one, patrolling between houses on a route older than anyone remembers. The cats, employed rather than owned, paid in mice and permitted by even the sternest households because the granary is a kingdom and they are its knights. And the village pound, a little fenced enclosure near the green where stray animals are impounded until their owner pays the fine. Which means somewhere in England right now, in your other century, a pound lane marks the spot where medieval pigs did their time. The past doesn't vanish. It just gets paved, renamed, and walked over by people carrying its surnames.
The sun stands at the top of the sky and the whole village exhales. This is dinner. And no, not evening. In the Middle Ages, dinner is the midday meal, the biggest of the day. And the schedule makes perfect sense. You've been working since dawn, you'll work till dusk, so the fuel goes in the middle. Everyone walks in from the fields, tools down. For an hour, the striped hills are empty. So what's actually on the table on a normal Tuesday? Pottage, again, but the noon version is the deluxe edition. Thicker, maybe enriched with a lump of bacon from the pig's predecessor, salted and hanging from your rafter since November.
Bread, cheese, good cheese, because your wife or your mother is a skilled dairy woman, and the cow, when she's milking, is the family's beating economic heart. Eggs, if the hens cooperated. And in the pod season, fresh peas eaten like candy. And here is the number that shocks everyone. The working medieval peasant eats a lot. Historians estimate 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day in decent years, more at harvest. You are not the starving wretch of the movies. You're an endurance athlete on a whole grain, vegetable-heavy, nearly sugar-free diet. And this detail is real. Your bones will show a stronger frame and better teeth than many of your urban descendants 6 centuries later, because there's no sugar to rot them.
Now, for what's missing, and this is where your modern palate would file a formal complaint. Meat? Fresh meat is occasional. Bacon is the workhorse. Chicken when one stops laying, maybe beef at a festival. The Lord's deer, the Lord's rabbits, the fish in the Lord's pond, the pigeons in the Lord's dovecote, all off limits, all deliciously visible, and poaching is both a crime and a proud rural tradition. Spices? Pepper exists. In your village, roughly as accessible as saffron is to you now. The rich literally lock their spice boxes. And the seasoning of everything is salt, the medieval world's most serious substance. You'll hear its echo every payday, since the word salary is Rome's old salt money joke still running.
But the real flavor of this meal isn't in the pot. It's the hour itself. The whole household around one table, the whole village stopped at the same moment, the day's spine given a proper rest. Nobody eats alone at a desk. Nobody eats in a car. The concept doesn't exist. Eating is a group activity, the way breathing is. After the meal, in the warm months, comes the bonus round your HR department will never approve. Everyone lies down. Under a tree, against a wall, in the shade of the cart, 20, 30 minutes, the whole society napping at once, and no one even thinks it remarkable. The medieval workday is brutal, but it is shaped like a human being. Hard effort, big food, real rest. In rhythm. You die without your phone in this century? Sure. But some afternoon around 1 o'clock, lying under a pear tree with a full stomach and absolutely nowhere to be, you might catch yourself wondering who actually organized their day better. Table culture? Quickly, because the details are wonderful. You don't have a plate. You have a trencher, a thick slab of stale bread that serves as an edible dish, soaking up the pottage, and at meal's end, it's eaten by the hungriest, fed to the pig, or, in better houses, collected for the poor at the door, a plate that becomes charity.
Cups are shared, passed along the bench, which is why medieval courtesy books obsess over wiping your mouth before drinking. Manners here aren't decoration, they're hygiene diplomacy. Your knife is personal. Forks don't exist. And when they finally arrive from the exotic East, preachers will briefly denounce them as effete devil tridents. And hanging over the whole menu is the church's culinary constitution. Fast days. Every Friday, often Wednesday and Saturday too, plus all of Lent's 40 days, no meat. Stack it up, and something like a third of the year is legally meatless, which is why fish looms so large in the medieval imagination. Salted herring by the barrel for ordinary folk, eels from the mill pond, eels so embedded in the economy that some rents are literally paid in them. Thousands of eels a year flowing upstream from tenant to lord like slippery currency. The fast is law, enforced by church courts, but it's also accidentally rhythm. Feast and fast alternating like the fields themselves, richness meaning more because it isn't constant. Your century abolished the fasts and kept the feasting permanently on. Ask your waistline tonight which system was designed by the smarter dietitian.
This afternoon, there's an event. The Manor Court is in session, held every few weeks in the Manor Hall, and attendance isn't optional entertainment, it's obligation. But let's be honest, it's also the best show in town. Forget everything the movies taught you about medieval justice for a moment. The torture dungeons, the screaming, the lawless whim. The village's daily legal reality is stranger and pettier and much more human. It's small claims court, zoning board, and reality television fused into one institution. And the court rolls? Thousands survive. Actual parchment records? Read like a sitcom script.
Today's docket, reconstructed from real cases. John Green let his cows wander into the Lord's oats, fined 2 pence. Matilda brewed ale and sold it before the official ale tasters tasted it, fined. 2 neighbors moved a boundary stone in the night, each accusing the other. Someone's pig It might be your pig dug up the churchyard. A man called his neighbor's wife something the clerk recorded in careful Latin, and the whole village is here to enjoy the recap. Fines of a penny here, 2 pence there, annoying, real, survivable, and all of it recorded because the record is the law, the custom of the manor, remembered and written, the same custom that limits what the Lord can squeeze from you.
Now the darker floor of the system. Serious crime, theft above a shilling, violence, murder, goes up to the royal courts. And there, the Middle Ages earns its reputation. Punishments are public, physical, and designed to be remembered. Yet even here, the century has its surprises. Juries, 12 local men who know the accused, routinely undervalue stolen goods on purpose, deliberately pricing a stolen cloak at 11 pence because 12 pence makes the theft a hanging matter. Jury nullification 600 years before the phrase. Trial by ordeal, the hot iron, the cold water, was already banned by the church back in 1215, decades before your time. The system runs on testimony, oath, and reputation. And reputation is the real currency of the law here. Your oath is worth what your neighbors say it's worth. And men bring oath helpers, character witnesses, swearing not to facts, but to the quality of your word. And if things truly go wrong for you, there's the hue and cry. See a crime, and you're legally obligated to scream the village awake and join the chase. An entire settlement turning into a posse in 90 seconds. And there's sanctuary. Reach the church door, grip the ring, and the law cannot touch you for 40 days. A cool-down timer built into criminal justice.
Would you last? Legally, probably yes. The court's business is overwhelmingly pig-related. But you'd learn the medieval golden rule fast. Here, your reputation isn't your brand. It's your shield, your credit score, and your alibi, maintained daily in front of 300 witnesses who forget nothing. One more docket the court handles, and it's the one your heart cares about: marriage. Here's what the movies get wrong. Medieval church law says a valid marriage requires only the free consent of both parties. Words of consent exchanged between two people, that's the sacrament. Which is why couples get married in doorways, gardens, and taverns, sometimes to the church's administrative horror, and why the courts are full of he said, she said cases about whether words of present consent were spoken behind a haystack.
Romance exists, fiercely. The ballads are full of it. But so does arithmetic. Land marries land. And your parents have opinions with acreage attached. If you're a villain, the Lord's ledger appears even here. Merch it. The fine paid when your daughter marries, especially off the manor, one of serfdom's most hated line items, because it prices a family moment in pennies. Then there are the church courts, the bawdy courts, villagers call them, handling sin the manor court won't. Adultery, slander, working on Sunday, brawling in the churchyard. Punishments are theatrical penance, standing before the congregation in a white sheet, holding a candle, public apology as public spectacle. Humiliating? Completely. But notice what it isn't. It isn't prison. And it comes with a built-in ending. Perform the penance and you are, officially and socially, done. The books are balanced. Medieval justice believes in shame the way yours believes in records. But their shame expires. Your database never does. File that one under things nobody expects to envy.
Late afternoon errand, the neighboring market town, an hour's walk because it's Thursday and Thursday is market day, chartered by the king, policed by its own court, and the closest thing your world has to a shopping mall, a stock exchange, and a news app rolled into one muddy square. But first, a confession about your wallet. You barely have one. Here is the strangest fact of medieval village economics. Coins are real but rare. A silver penny is a serious object. Your family might see a few dozen pass through its hands in a year, mostly around rent day and harvest sales. So how does anything work? Trust. Formalized, remembered, enforceable trust. You owe the smith for the plow repair. He owes you for eggs going back to Easter. The alewife keeps tallies, literal notches on a tally stick, split down the middle so each party holds half and neither can cheat. The medieval blockchain. Debts settle at intervals, often in kind, and everyone's running balance is common knowledge. The economy is a village-wide ledger written in memory and wood.
And it works, because remember, nobody can leave. Default and your credit dies in front of everyone. Forever. At the market, real money appears. You're selling eggs, cheese, maybe surplus oats. You're buying the things a village can't make. Salt, above all. Iron, tar, a new pot. And if the eggs sell well, a treat. A ribbon, a handful of raisins, dried figs from lands you couldn't place on a map, because there are no maps in your life. Watch the square work. Official measures chained to the market cross so no one sells with a short bushel. The assize of bread and ale fixing prices to the grain supply? Price regulation, 13th century style. Bakers who short weight get dragged through the streets with the offending loaf tied around their neck? Consumer protection as public theater.
Pickpockets work in the crowd, pardoners selling salvation certificates of questionable provenance, a friar preaching against greed, conveniently near the money changers. And information, the market's invisible commodity. News of the war, the king's new tax, grain prices in the next county, which lord is hiring harvest hands, all of it moving mouth to mouth at market speed, which is the only speed news has. Standing in that crowd, you'd finally grasp the deepest difference between your worlds. In your century, money is invisible and information is instant. Here, it's exactly reversed. Money is heavy, physical, biteable, and information travels at the pace of a walking merchant.
Neither world is more real, but only one of them lets a village of 300 people run 90% of its economy on pure, naked, structural trust, and it isn't yours. The sun is dropping. Buy your salt, pocket your 2 remaining pennies like the treasure they are, and start the walk home. The best part of the medieval day is coming. Let's put real numbers in your pocket while you shop, because medieval prices are a map of what the world values. A day's wage for a laborer? A penny, maybe 2 in harvest. What a penny buys? A chicken, roughly, 2 dozen eggs, a gallon or 2 of decent ale.
Shoes? 5-6 pence, nearly a week's work walking on your feet. A cow? 9-10 shillings, 100+ day wages, the family Mercedes. A sword? Pounds, literal years of your labor, which is why peasants fight with what agriculture already puts in their hands. And a book, remember, costs more than your house, which resets the whole scale. Notice the shape of this economy. Labor is cheap and things are expensive. The exact mirror of your century, where a t-shirt costs an hour's minimum wage and a plumber costs a fortune. That's why nothing here is disposable. Every barrel, hinge, and horseshoe is repaired, repurposed, inherited. The village would stare at your garbage can like it was a hole into which someone was throwing money.
2 Market Square footnotes to finish. The peddler, the walking one-man department store who brings pins, ribbons, and news to villages the market can't reach, welcomed everywhere and trusted nowhere. And the coins themselves, silver pennies clipped and shaved at the edges by generations of small-time cheats, which is why merchants weigh coins instead of counting them, why testing with your teeth is real, and why the crown periodically hangs counterfeiters with theatrical enthusiasm. Money is physical here, so crime against money is physical too. Your card-skimming scammers would feel right at home, and they just need better fingers.
On the walk home, your ankle turns in a cart rut. Nothing broken, but let's use the scare, because it's time to answer the question your modern body has been quietly asking all day. What happens here if I get sick? First, meet your healthcare system. There is no doctor in the village. Physicians, university men who read Galen and inspect urine in glass flasks, exist in cities, cost a fortune, and for most complaints will theorize elegantly about your 4 humors and then bleed you. Barber surgeons pull teeth, set bones, lance boils. Brutal, fast, occasionally effective. But your actual first line of care is closer. The village's wise women, the herb garden, your own family's inherited pharmacy of remedies. And before you smirk, know that modern lab work keeps embarrassing the smirk.
Honey on wounds? Genuinely antibacterial. Willow bark for pain? Literally the ancestor of aspirin. Garlic, vinegar washes, certain poultices? Real antimicrobial activity. One Anglo-Saxon eye salve recipe was tested a few years before your time, your other time, and killed antibiotic-resistant MRSA in the lab better than some modern drugs.
Medieval medicine is not stupidity. It's 1,000 years of careful trial and error wrapped in a theory that happens to be wrong. That said, the theory is spectacularly wrong. Nobody knows germs exist. Disease arrives as bad air, divine displeasure, or misaligned humors, which means nobody consistently connects the well to the churchyard drainage, and the surgeon's knife is wiped, not sterilized. And so the real dangers of your medieval life are exactly these: the infected cut, the bad water month, childbirth, a mortal frontier crossed by every mother every time, and the fevers that sweep through every few years and take the week. Which brings us to the biggest myth about this entire era, so listen closely. Medieval people died at 35. No, that number is an average, dragged down by the heartbreaking arithmetic of infant mortality, with roughly one child in 4 or 5 never reaching age 5. Survive childhood, and your odds transform. Records of ordinary tenants show men who reach 20 routinely living into their 50s and 60s. The village has real grandmothers and grandfathers, and the manor court rolls are full of stubborn 70-year-olds still suing their neighbors over hedges.
Your village is not a place without old people. It's a place where every old person is a survivor, and everyone knows exactly what they survived. So tonight, rub a comfrey poultice on that ankle. It'll probably help. Say the charm your grandmother says over it. Because in this world, medicine and prayer are the same gesture. And count yourself lucky it wasn't the tooth. Because yes, the remedy for the truly rotten tooth is the blacksmith's pliers. And no, there is nothing in the ale strong enough. Some things about the Middle Ages are exactly as advertised. Now, the hygiene file. Because your century's favorite medieval myth needs surgery too. No, these people are not proudly filthy. Washing hands before and after meals is standard courtesy. Ewer, basin, towel offered to any guest. Faces and hands are washed daily, teeth rubbed with cloth and hazel twigs, green herbs chewed for breath. Full body baths are a production. Hauling and heating water is real labor, so they're occasional. A wooden tub by the fire, the household sharing the water eldest first. But in towns, public bathhouses do brisk business. The medieval nose has standards. Being notably dirty gets you mocked in poems, and he stank appears in court insults, which tells you it wasn't the default. What they lack isn't the desire for cleanliness. It's germ theory, soap that's cheap, and infrastructure. No sewers in the village, the well uncomfortably acquainted with the midden, the river doing double duty upstream and down. Clean-ish people, dirty systems. The exact inverse of a modern city, which is sterile systems full of people who shake hands all day. And spare a moment for the profession that holds female medicine together. The midwife, licensed by the bishop no less, senior woman of the birth room where no man sets foot, keeper of the village's most guarded expertise. When things go right, she's a heroine. The tragedy is how often, through no fault of hers, the era lets things go wrong. Every mother in your village has walked through that door of danger, some several times, some not back out. When the church bells ring for a safe delivery, the whole village hears exactly what was survived. They ring a lot, though. That's the thing to remember. They ring a lot. The light is failing, and here is where your medieval day delivers its finest hour. Work ends with the light, not with the boss's permission, with the sun's, and the village folds inward toward fire. Some nights that means the alewife's cottage, the green branch over her door, benches dragged close, a penny's worth of her fresh batch. The prototype pub, loud with the day's gossip, dice games the church officially frowns at, and songs everyone knows because everyone has always known them. But most nights, it means your own hearth. And this is the scene I want you to actually feel. The fire is the television. I mean that structurally. It is the light source, the warmth, and the thing everyone faces. Around it, the evening economy runs on low-light handwork. Your mother spinning wool with a drop spindle, endless, hypnotic. Your father mending a harness, someone shelling last season's beans, and on talk. Stories. This is the medieval broadcasting system. The same tales retold and embellished for generations. Saints who outwit devils, local ghosts at the ford, the fox who tricks the wolf, giants who threw the standing stones, and increasingly everyone's favorite newish genre,
outlaw ballads, men in the greenwood who rob corrupt sheriffs, a folk hero you'd recognize taking shape in real time. Nobody reads? Not because your people are dull, because books are treasure. A single volume costs more than your house, each one copied by hand over months. The village's entire library is the priest's service book. And so memory does what paper does for you. Your neighbors carry genealogies, land boundaries, hundreds of songs, the whole legal custom of the manor, all of it filed in living heads. A medieval peasant's memory would humiliate yours. It's had to. Outside, full darkness now, and the day's last institution rings from the church tower, the curfew bell. Here's a gift for your modern vocabulary. Curfew is French. Couvre-feu, cover the fire. It isn't a police order to stay indoors. It's a fire safety broadcast, the signal for every household in a village of thatch and timber to bank the embers under ash so the town doesn't burn down while it sleeps. The same embers you woke this morning. The circle of the day closing. One more mug of small ale. The fire sinks to a red glow. Your eyes are heavy in a way your other life rarely allows. The heaviness of a body genuinely used. And now comes the strangest, most wonderful thing about your medieval night. The thing sleep scientists in your century write papers about. Because you are not about to sleep 8 hours straight. Nobody here does. Nobody here ever has. 2 more textures of the medieval evening before the candle question settles it. First, music. Because this village sings. Not performance, participation. Work songs that keep scythes in rhythm, rounds where each bench takes a line. Carols, which in your target century are circle dances with singing, not yet Christmas property. And the repertoire lives in everyone. Learn the way you learned your alphabet. Instruments are whatever can be made or afforded. A pipe whittled from elder, a drum, bells, and in luckier villages, a fiddle that makes its owner permanently popular.
Second, games. 9 men's Morris boards scratched into barrel tops and, look closely in your other life, actually carved into the cloister stones of English cathedrals by bored monks and masons. Merrills, dice, endlessly denounced, endlessly played, knucklebones for children, and riddles traded by the fire like small coins of wit. And all of it happens inside the evening's real constraint, light. Candles of beeswax are church and lord territory. Tallow candles smoke and smell of sheep fat and still cost real money. The peasant solution is the rushlight, a dried rush stem soaked in kitchen grease, clipped at an angle, burning maybe 20, 30 minutes each, which makes every evening a quiet arithmetic. Is this task, this page, this hour of talk worth another rush? When people in your century light a candle for atmosphere, they're buying for pocket change what a medieval family budgeted like fuel. The darkness you decorate with, they lived inside it and built around its edges the entire warm technology of the hearthside evening you just enjoyed.
Lie down on the straw. Family around you, pigs snoring softly in the corner, absolute darkness overhead. You fall asleep fast. 4,000 calories of field work will do that. And here begins the strangest true fact of this entire 24 hours. You sleep, and around midnight, maybe 1 in the morning, you wake up. Naturally. Everyone does. And nobody panics because this is simply how humans sleep here. The first sleep has ended, and there's an hour, sometimes 2, of quiet wakefulness before the second sleep carries you to dawn. This isn't speculation. Historians, most famously Roger Ekirch, dug through centuries of diaries, court testimony, medical books, and prayer manuals and found first sleep and second sleep mentioned constantly, casually, across all of pre-industrial Europe, the way you'd mention lunch. There were prayers written specifically for the watch between sleeps, court records where witnesses timestamp events as after first sleep, doctors advising which side to lie on for each sleep. An entire hour of human culture that modern life simply deleted. So what do people do in that gap? Everything quiet and human. They pray. Those night offices fit here. They talk. Couples in the dark. The day reviewed at whisper volume. They tend the fire, check the animals, step out to look at a sky so thick with stars you'd swear it was fake. No artificial light for 100 miles. The Milky Way like spilled flour.
Medieval sleep manuals genuinely recommended the pause between sleeps for marital affection, which historians note with academic politeness, and everyone else notes with a grin. Some people even visited neighbors. There was, in effect, a secret social hour in the middle of the night. And when did humanity lose this? When artificial light conquered the evening. Gas lamps, then electric bulbs pushing bedtime later and compressing the night into one efficient block. Within 2 generations, the 2 sleeps fused into one, and the wakeful hour was forgotten so completely that when your body does it, when you snap awake at 3 a.m. for no reason and lie there catastrophizing about your inbox, you call it insomnia and download an app. Your medieval self would find that hilarious. That 3 a.m. wakefulness may be the oldest rhythm you own. Knocking on a door nobody answers anymore. So, here, tonight, on the straw, enjoy it. Lie in the pitch dark in the middle of your one wild medieval night, listening to the settle of embers, a dog barking 2 farms over, the breathing of everyone you love within one arm's reach. No inbox, no blue light, nothing to optimize. The second sleep will come when it comes. It always does. And it will hold you clear through to the bell. Which rings, as you now know personally, at 4. One honest appendix to the night, because the dark here isn't only cozy. Some fears are practical. Fire, above all. Thatch and timber and open flame make every village one knocked lamp away from catastrophe, which is why the curfew bell is taken seriously, and why your descendants will still be saying burning the candle at both ends as shorthand for recklessness. Thieves in the village barely feature. There's nothing anonymous to steal and nowhere anonymous to go. Rural crime waves are a town problem. Wolves? In England, by your century, nearly hunted out. More story than threat, though the stories do excellent business after dark. But the biggest night fear is the one your century has genuinely forgotten, the spiritual dark. Night here is theologically loaded. The hours between curfew and cockcrow belong, in the village imagination, to everything unofficial. Ghosts doing penance, demons testing shutters, the restless dead walking the boundary your grandmother swears her grandmother saw. The church itself splits the difference, blessing the night with prayer offices, while its own exempla stock the darkness with warnings. So people armor the night the way you lock a door. A prayer at lying down is standard as brushing your teeth. A cross scratched over the lintel, herbs above the cradle, iron by the door. Call it superstition, and you've missed the function. It's a technology for making the uncontrollable feel handled. Bedtime cybersecurity for the soul. And it works the way such things work. Everyone sleeps better, which, in a world without streetlights, is the entire point. The night was never empty here. It was just differently populated. Before we wake you from your medieval night, zoom out with me, because a single day lies, and to judge whether you'd last here, you need the shape of the whole year. First, the good news, and it's genuinely shocking. The medieval calendar is stuffed with days off. Every Sunday, when servile work is forbidden. Then the feast days. Christmas isn't a day, it's 12 through Epiphany, with work banned and the Lord often obliged by custom to feed his tenants. Easter week, Whitsun, May Day, Midsummer, the Harvest End Feast, the Parish Saints' Day, wakes, church ales, weddings that stop the village. Add it up, and historians count somewhere between 40 and 60 full holidays a year, beyond Sundays in many places, meaning your medieval self may take more days off than your modern self does, and takes them properly. No inbox creeping into the feast, because the inbox has not been invented. And medieval leisure is loud. Football played village against village with a pig's bladder and roughly 0 rules. Wrestling, archery, eventually mandated by law, which tells you how seriously fun was taken. Dancing in the churchyard the priest pretends not to see. And mystery plays, where your neighbor the miller plays Noah and everyone remembers it for a decade. This is the rhythm the factory clock later flattened. Intense work in bursts. Harvest is a 3-week emergency where the whole village works like a single organism, set against deep valleys of feast and rest, in tune with the light and the land. Now the other side of the ledger, and I won't soften it. The medieval year has a monster in it, and its name is famine. Not the everyday hunger of a lean week,
The great failures, when the rain doesn't stop or doesn't come and the harvest dies twice in a row. Your grandparents lived one, the Great Famine that opened the century, when years of drowned harvests starved a tenth or more of Northern Europe, and the price of bread became the only news that mattered. That memory sits under everything. It's why the granary is sacred, why waste is sin, why the whole village watches the sky in August like sailors watching a storm.
And beyond famine, the century's true shadow, the one your 1300 self doesn't know is coming, but the reason the Dark Ages still makes your century shiver, is the pestilence that will, in one generation, take a third of everyone. We told that story in another night's journey. Your village will survive it. Most did, changed forever. And the survivors' grandchildren will ironically live better. Land cheaper, labor precious, wages up, lords suddenly polite. History's cruelest race. So, feast and famine, football and plague, more holidays and worse odds. The medieval year doesn't fit in nasty, brutish, and short, and it doesn't fit in a greeting card either.
It fits in a church calendar, which is exactly where they kept it. Walk the whole year once, fast, so you feel its heartbeat. Winter, the indoor semester. Threshing in the barn, mending, carving, spinning, the animals sharing your walls and warming them. Short days, long fires, Christmas blazing 12 days in the middle like a bonfire in the dark. Spring, the gamble, plowing and sowing the spring field, lambing at all hours, the year's hope literally thrown into mud. Early summer, haymaking, the first all-hands emergency, because hay is winter's milk and meat in disguise. Then, the hungry gap tightens its belt just as the sun peaks, the year's cruelest joke.
August, harvest, the 3-week war. Every man, woman, and child in the fields, dawn to dusk. The Lord's bailiff watching the sky like a general. Church ale barrels waiting for the last sheaf, because if this month fails, the whole next year is famines. Autumn, the paying of debts. Grain to the granary, rents at Michaelmas, plowing the winter field, and then the great slaughter around Martinmas, when the animals that can't be overwintered become the larder. Black Pudding Week, Sausage Week, the one season of fresh meat abundance, festive and unsentimental at once. Then the wheel closes back to winter's fireside. Notice what's missing. No January of gym resolutions, no artificial quarters, no fiscal years. The calendar isn't imposed on life here. It is life, cut to the land's actual shape.
Your body still remembers this wheel. It's why autumn makes you want to cook and winter makes you want to hibernate. Civilization changed the schedule. Nobody told your hormones. The bell. 4 o'clock, iron and cold, and your 24 medieval hours are complete. Time for the honest verdict. Would you, the person under that duvet, actually last here? Scorecard. The work? Harder than anything your body has done, but survivable. Your ancestors' bodies were built by it, and within a season, yours would toughen too. The food? Monotonous. Healthier than yours in several embarrassing ways, and there is honestly nothing wrong with pottage. The law? Fussy, public, obsessed with pigs, but rule-bound and gentler in daily practice than its dungeon movie reputation. The community? Suffocating and magnificent. A surveillance state made of love and grudges that will also rebuild your house in a week. The sleep? The sleep you might actually envy. So what would actually get you? 3 things, and none of them are the dramatic ones. First, the infected scratch, the bad tooth, the childbirth, the 1,000 tiny mortalities your century deleted with a tube of antiseptic cream. Second, the loss of choice. Not the hardship itself, but its inescapability. No notice period, no moving away, no reinventing yourself. Your strips, your lord, your village, your role, assigned at birth forever. And third, the one nobody expects, the silence in your head. No feed, no music on demand, no option to be somewhere else mentally, ever. Your modern brain, trained on infinite novelty, would spend its first medieval month in withdrawal, climbing the walls of a world with one channel. And then, this is the uncomfortable part, it would probably calm down. Because look at what the day gave you, unasked. Hard work with visible results. Food eaten together, always. Rest taken at the body's rhythm, not the clock's. 300 people who know your name, your father's name, and exactly how you like your ale. None of whom you chose, all of whom would pull you out of a burning house.
a night sky that makes your chest ache twice a night for free. Modern life, spend $400 on a meditation app to chase what the curfew bell delivered nightly at no charge. The truth of would you last is that it's two questions wearing one hood. Could your body survive the Middle Ages? After a rough first year, very possibly. Could your mind survive being medieval? That one you'd have to earn. But here's the gentlest thought to fall asleep on. They lasted. Every single dawn bell, every famine year, every pig-related lawsuit. They got up, worked, feasted, buried, sang, and lasted for 1,000 years without any of the machinery you're sure you couldn't live without. And their toughness is not gone. It's the floor under everything you have. It's in you, sleeping, the way the second sleep is. So pull the blanket up, you incredibly lucky owner of a mattress, an antibiotic, and a light bulb you're about to not need. The embers are banked. The village is quiet. The bell will ring when it rings. Good night from all 300 of us. One last gift to take back through the bell, and it's the answer to a question you haven't asked out loud. What happened to them, this village, these 300 people you've spent a night with? History happened. Slowly. Their grandchildren survived the Great Pestilence and inherited a transformed bargain. Land cheap, labor dear, serfdom quietly rotting until lords were renting out their domains and villains' great-grandsons were yeomen with surnames and, eventually, opinions. Centuries later, enclosure took the open fields, the strips fenced, the commons hedged, the striped blanket landscape you plowed this morning, surviving now mostly as faint corrugations under English pasture, visible from the air like the ghost of a fingerprint. The villages themselves, some grew into towns, some starved into hamlets, and some, the lost villages, thousands of them, are just humps in a sheep field with a name on an old map. But here's the part that matters to you, lying in your warm bed 12 generations downstream. They didn't disappear, they compounded. Every Smith and Miller and At the Green in your phone contacts, the furlong inside the mile, the pound lane, the curfew, the salary, the way you crave a nap after lunch and wake at 3 in the morning, you are walking around inside their unfinished sentences. You didn't visit strangers tonight. You visited the people whose stubbornness is the reason there was ever a you. So when the 4 o'clock bell rings them awake, let it ring you the other way, down into the second sleep they tell you you've earned. They kept the fire in overnight for 1,000 years. It's still lit. Good night.